You ever walk into a courthouse and feel like the whole world's just waiting for a show? That morning, those old wooden doors slammed open so hard it sounded like a starter pistol, and in strode Richard Lopez, dressed to kill, shoes so shiny you could see your face in them, and on his arm was Vanessa, this 20-something blonde whose dress was so red it felt like a fire alarm going off in a room that was supposed to be about justice. You know what I mean? The way they strutted down that marble hallway. You'd think they owned the building, Richard flashing that cocky grin. Vanessa clinging on tight like she was trying to become a permanent part of his wardrobe. Every head turned. Even the security guards couldn't look away, but honestly, it was the look on Richard's face that really made people stop. That "I've already won" kind of smugness that makes you want to see someone trip on their own shoelaces. Now, here's the thing about people like Richard. They always think they're the smartest person in the room, especially when they're about to try and ruin someone else's life. I caught that little whisper to Vanessa as they passed. "This is going to be easier than I thought." You could see in his eyes, this guy thought he had every card up his sleeve, ready to bury his wife Elia in court, take every last penny, and walk out with the girl and the cash. Vanessa giggled, this high-pitched sound that was supposed to be cute but just came off mean, pressing herself closer, like she wanted everyone to see exactly what kind of victory she was about to claim. But here's where Richard made his first mistake. He didn't even see Elia sitting there, calm as a stone, just watching him with these dark, steady eyes from a bench outside the courtroom, hands folded, not an ounce of panic in her face. I'll tell you, the way she looked at him, not angry, not scared, just waiting, like she already knew the ending and was just flipping through the pages to get there. Her lawyer, Patricia, walked up with this massive folder, and the weight of it seemed to hang in the air. "You ready?" she asked, and Elia stood up, smoothing her dress, that calm smile barely touching her lips. "I've been ready for months," she said. The real question is whether Richard's ready for what's coming. And man, you could tell she meant it. Inside the courtroom, Judge Harrison took his seat. The kind of guy who's seen too many families burn down in that room, eyes tired but sharp, like nothing could surprise him anymore. Richard walked in like it was his own boardroom. All his high-priced lawyers shuffling behind, briefcases full of papers designed to make Elia look like the villain. Vanessa made a whole show of sitting right up front, subtle as a neon sign. Honestly, then it started, Richard's lawyer standing up with that dramatic, "Your Honor, we have reason to believe," nonsense, launching straight into accusations. Elia's unfaithful. The kids might not even be Richard's. All of it designed to poison the air and make Elia look desperate. Richard leaned back, that same smug grin, waiting for Elia to break. But she just sat there, hands folded, looking right through him. And then the twist, Judge Harrison pulled out a manila envelope. You could see Richard's confidence drain away before the judge even opened it. DNA tests, financial records, sworn statements. Suddenly, all those lies Richard thought he could tell started to choke him right there in front of everyone. His lawyer looked lost. Vanessa's face went from cocky to pale, and Elia, she didn't even blink. She'd been waiting for this. She was 10 steps ahead, and for the first time all morning, Richard realized he wasn't the one writing the script. You want to know how people get to a moment like that? It doesn't happen overnight. Years ago, Richard was different, less arrogant, more earnest, the kind of guy who made Elia fall for him over a coffee counter at the campus cafe, where she worked nights to put herself through law school. Back then, he wasn't about money. He was about big ideas, making tech that actually helped people, not just making a buck. Their first date, he brought her sunflowers because she'd mentioned she liked them. Fidgeted with his napkin because he wanted to impress her, not the world. For a while, he kept that promise, even after his startup went wild and the money started rolling in. He paid for her law school, not as a favor, but because partners support each other, right? Their wedding was tiny, just family and friends in the garden behind the cafe. He cried seeing her walk down the aisle. For the first 3 years, he was all in. The guy who made soup when she was sick, turned off his phone for vacations. The kind of father who read stories to their twins even when his phone was buzzing with business. But money changes things. Power, too. By the time his company went public, Richard was never home. Every dinner missed was just one more deal, and every apology started sounding like an excuse. Elia picked up the slack, telling herself he'd come back eventually, that it was just a rough patch. That love could survive anything. Even when the late nights stopped making sense, when his phone lived face down on the nightstand, when the conversations got shorter, she trusted him. That was her real mistake. The first crack in the marriage was a text. "Miss you already, baby. Can't wait for our weekend in Miami." From a number Elia didn't recognize, but her heart did. She confronted Richard, and you could see the man she'd married disappear in real time. He tried to explain, "It just happened. She's my assistant." "Nothing just happens, Richard." Every word felt like another cut, and when she asked about the hotel receipts, his whole body just sagged, like he was glad to stop pretending. The worst wasn't even the affair, it was the plan. Through a private investigator, Elia found out Richard and Vanessa had been plotting for years, not just to leave her, but to leave her with nothing, to steal from the family they'd built together. Vanessa wasn't new to this, either. Turns out, she'd made a career of targeting married billionaires, always walking away richer. And Richard? He was more than willing. There were secret accounts, shell companies, fake business deals, everything set up to hide money from his own wife and kids. All while she was working overtime just to keep the family glued together. You ever get to that moment where grief turns to rage and rage turns to focus? That's where Elia went. She copied files, hired experts, documented everything. Every hidden dollar, every text. Every business trip that wasn't. She played the loving wife at home while she built a case that would make any prosecutor jealous. When she finally confronted Richard in court, she had everything. The DNA results that proved the twins were his, recordings of Richard and Vanessa plotting to ruin her, evidence of millions hidden away. Patricia, her lawyer, laid it all out, in front of Richard, the judge, and everyone who thought they could get away with it. And here's the second twist. Vanessa had been coaching Richard on how to make Elia look like a cheater, how to fake doubt about the kids, how to bankrupt her. But the whole time, Vanessa was also preparing her own exit, documenting everything, just in case she needed to play the victim later. Turns out, she'd done this before. But Elia wasn't some passive, naive wife. She was a lawyer, and she'd been 3 steps ahead the whole time. The final showdown was brutal. Richard took the stand and lied about the marriage, about the money, about the kids. But Patricia took him apart piece by piece. The DNA tests. "You are their father, aren't you?" Judge Harrison had seen enough. He ordered everything. The hidden millions, the child custody, even legal fees, to go to Elia. Richard tried to negotiate, but the judge just stared him down. "You had your chance to be fair. Now you'll deal with the consequences." Vanessa tried to slip away, but the DA was already looking into her business with other married men. Richard? He left that courthouse a shell of the man who'd swaggered in, all his power gone, the mistress at his side replaced by a lawyer with a stack of subpoenas. That night, Elia read to her kids. Richard was still dealing with criminal charges, Vanessa was under investigation, and Elia had started her own law firm helping women in the same position she'd been in. On the first anniversary of the divorce, she took her kids to the old park where she'd first met Richard, watched them play, and realized surviving wasn't enough. She was thriving, and she'd built something no one could ever take from her again. You look at all of it, and you have to ask, who really wins in a war like that? Maybe the real victory is walking away with your head high, your kids safe, and your future wide open, knowing that the only justice worth having is the kind you make for yourself. So, what do you think? Is justice really served? Or is the system just a battleground for people who know how to play dirty? Drop your thoughts below, because I know everyone's got a side in a story like this.